There we are. Now we're live. All right. Hi, guys. Okay. Well, as you can tell from the title of this episode, I have signed a I've signed with an agent. I have signed a lifetime agreement, exclusive agreement with Arthur Weidenbaum of the Weidenbaum Literary Agency, and he is going to be my agent for the rest of my life. And the reason I made this decision, and it wasn't easy, but I felt I was missing out. I saw a lot of other writers on X talking about signing with an agent, signing a book deal, getting movie deals, all that kind of stuff. And I thought, I want to be able to post about signing an agent. So Arthur is someone I've known from college. He has he's not been a part of my life for a long time, but I decided to bring him back. Um, to be clear, he is fictional. He is a fictional agent, and he only exists in certain contexts. But other than that, he's completely legitimate. He fired all of his other clients to take me on. He is going to be working with me exclusively, which is a double edged sword because now he doesn't have anyone else to pester and bug and prod and poke except me. Today, he made a demand to me that I write 4,000 new words of fiction every day and send them to him. And I posted on X. What I'm asked if that sounds reasonable, normal. Is that something that agents do? I don't know. I mean, I had an agent in Hollywood. I had several agents in Hollywood. Arnold Rudnick and I uh, uh, went from agency to agency. We worked our way up. Before that, I did have a literary agent who was in Texas. Interestingly enough, I was in Chicago and I acquired an agent in Texas who set up a meeting for me in Los Angeles. And when I got out there, I had a meeting. That was, oh man, that was terrifying. My very first pitch meeting um, went horribly. I had my first of all, my mouth went dry. You ever go to a meeting and they offer you something to drink? Take it. Take it, have something to drink, make sure you're hydrated, make sure your mouth is sufficiently moist to get you through your pitch. And then also practice your pitch. Practice it until you can say it blindfolded, without your eyes closed. You can It's just second nature. And so I learned a lot of valuable lessons at that first pitch meeting. One, be able to pitch your story. And two, take the damn water. Take the water. It's free. They're giving it to you. Don't turn down if maybe the only thing they give you is a bottle of water. So, I don't know how things are gonna turn out. Arthur has made some very, very big promises to me. He has told me that I am gonna be bigger than Jody J. Sperling, which is a tall order. He is huge. If you don't know Jody, Jody is a writer. He hosts a podcast called Becoming a Household Name, so you know he is big. So I'm looking forward to being that big, being a household name like Jody J. Sperling. So that's gonna be cool. The next thing I want to talk about tonight is well, first of all, let me catch you up on what I've done since the last time we talked. So I was working on the a remastered episode for the bedtime stories for Insomniac's Fiction podcast. So I had a story way back. It was story number 13, I believe, called The Time Cop Paradox. And I played it on on this podcast, on this stream, gosh, 3 or 4 nights ago as an example of one of my funnier stories, I think. I think it's funny. Arthur thinks it's hilarious. It's the one he, like, shares with people, says, "Listen, this guy is funny. Listen to this." So, I'm glad Arthur likes it. And I noticed, though, that during that episode, I'm speaking very fast. I'm talking very quickly. I'm telling the story very quickly. I'm narrating very quickly. The dialogue's coming out very fast. And I'm surprised that I didn't make more mistakes than I did. And back then, too, I was like, my production time was a lot longer because I hadn't learned all the tips and tricks and stuff like that. There's a thing there's called punch and roll, which is where you instead of just letting the recording go and just making your mistakes and saying, okay, take two, and do another one, or some people snap their fingers. I was doing that too for a while to sort of mark where, okay, cut this part out before this and then start again from here. When I did that, and I did that for my first audiobook, I missed things. There would be repeated phrases and sentences and fragments in there. And so later on, I discovered this technique that has been there for decades that people have used called punch and roll, where you record something and then you get to a point where like, ooh, that was bad. And so you put the cursor in the recording where you want to restart your recording, and it plays back the last second and a half for you in your ears, and then you record so you can sort of get into it. And so once I discovered that, like I'm the first person to figure this out. No, once I realized that that was a thing and how to use that tool, it sped things up tremendously because when I was done, I was done. I had everything in there in order. Now, that's not to say that I still did it perfectly, because what you'll discover if you try this, if you do this, and I encourage everybody to do this. I encourage all of you to read your own stories, read your own books, record them. You may not put them out there for sale or anything like that, but it is one of the best proofreading techniques there is. You can hire people to proofread. You can have people, friends and family proofread. You're going to miss stuff. I guarantee it. I There are very few books out there that are flawless, especially in this day and age with all the digital stuff, and people see things on the screen and all the time, and your brain is just kind of trained to like sort of fill in the gaps. So it's not easy to always catch everything that you're supposed to. So normally what I do is I'll record it. So I'm reading it out loud, and that usually helps me find things that are wrong with it. Then after I've read it out loud, either I'll do a chapter of my book or I'll do a whole story for bedtime stories, and then I'll go back and I'll listen to it again. And it's also really important that you do this in the same session, that you take a manageable segment of your product, in the case of a short story, the whole thing, or a chapter or two of the book, and record it, listen to it, and then what you'll find is you'll find, oh, I missed a word there. Oh, I said the wrong word. Oh, I used the wrong voice for that dialogue. And I have to go back then, and what I'll do is as I'm recording, I'll make a second track in the program I use, Audacity, and I will record in that second track the new phrase, clean it up. There are 3 things I do for every voice segment. I do a mouth declick, which is interesting. If you guys listen to this podcast, you'll sometimes hear little clicking noises in my mouth because I don't know how to prevent them. And then I do the normalization and then the limiting. So this is done because there is certain requirements that ACX has. ACX is the audio exchange that distributes books for both Audible and Apple Books. They're the biggest one, and they expect the audio tracks, to meet certain standards of what the lowest level of sound is, what the highest level of sound is, what the average level of sound is in between. And all of those things you can adjust by running certain filters through your audio. You're running your audio through certain filters, and Audacity has these filters that you can get and download, and lots of tutorials online on how to get that set up and working. And so I run through those things. So the point is I'll listen to the audio track, and then if I find something wrong, I'll immediately re-record that segment as much as I need to sort of like make a natural transition. And hopefully I am speaking in the same tone, the same tempo, uh, same timbre. All of those things are occurring since I'm doing it in the same session are going to be very, very close. Because maybe if you've noticed this too. Sometimes I'll read an audiobook, or I'll read an, I'll listen to an audiobook, and you'll come across a part of the book where the voice suddenly just starts changing, and the quality is different, the level is different, and then they'll go back to the regular audiobook. And you go, oh, they fixed something, or the author changed something, or whatever it was. But the narrator went back and just recorded that track in a completely different session on a completely different day, maybe even months later. And your voice changes. Your voice changes from day to day, from week to week, month to month, year to year. So it's really important when you're recording an audiobook, for example, to do it in a span of days rather than weeks. I have made that mistake where I have recorded something over weeks, and then it doesn't come together the way I want it to. So whenever I'm recording an audiobook, I set aside a weekend to just like, okay, I'm going to record the audio. And I go through chapter by chapter. I record it. I go back and listen to it. If there's any mistakes, I fix it. And I still come back and notice things that I got wrong. In my the really good day that was just on my podcast, just finished up. That was my brother's novel. Uh, over 12, almost 13 hours of audio. And I'm listening to like the first or second, I think it was the very first part. And I'm talking about the golfers on the golf course going down the cart path, except in the recording, I say path cart. And I missed it twice. I missed it when I first recorded. I missed it after I listened to it. And it was only after I listened to it on the podcast that I realized, yikes. So that's, something to be aware of too. So you want to have that sort of like, generally, I'd love to have someone else listen to it, but it's tough. It's tough to ask somebody to take 13 hours to just listen to something critically, not just casually, but critically. Pay attention, read along even with the book, and make sure everything is okay. That is a tough job. Uh, and when I've been at that point, by the time I've got to the point where I'm recording the book, I am on the final draft, and I have read this book dozens of times, dozens of times, and so it's hard. It's hard because your brain likes to trick you. Your brain likes to fill in details that it expects to see there and hide the mistakes from you. But the process of reading out loud, listening back, all of that uses different parts of your brain. So you're forced to sort of like perceive your words in multiple ways, which is good, which helps find that stuff out. So I I remastered, that episode, and as I pointed out last night, the new recording came out almost 5 minutes longer than the old one. The old one was 15 minutes, and this one was close to 20 minutes for the raw audio, which is huge. So that's like listening to it on 1.5 times speed or something like that. It's just crazy how much faster I was I was talking back then. If you listen to audiobooks, you'll notice that, the narrators tend to speak very slowly, and so I always listen to audiobooks at like 1.2, 1.25 speed, and it sounds fine to me. I don't like to listen to it too much faster because I feel like I lose some of the nuance and the inflections, and if there's a really good narrator, they may be doing, the voices well, I'll miss something out, but at 1.2, I feel like I retain the fidelity of the performance. At 2 times, I can't catch it. Some people like to do that because they like to get through it, but, I'm not one of those people. Uh, Jody J. Sperling, who is a household name, he, has, get he says he has dyslexia to a certain degree, and so when he's reading a book, if he's got the audiobook as well, he finds that that helps him to focus, which is really cool. So he will always, if he's reading a book, try to get the audiobook version as well, and then play it at double speed while he's reading. So he's used to that. He can sort of, and I think that's a little bit different too. When you're listening double speed and seeing the words, I think you're gonna hear more of that, going through there. Um, Although I know he listened to the Dead Kids Club at double speed on the podcast. He still enjoyed it, so we'll get there. Um, yeah. Arthur is not too happy about me giving away all my books for free on the podcast. I keep telling and I tell him, I said, Arthur, but the people who listen to it for free on the podcast are not the people who are going to buy my book. They're not going to pay for anything. There are always going to be people who are going to want it for free. And if they can't get it for free, they won't listen, they won't read. So I put all of my stories out on the podcast for free. I put them on Medium for free. And I put my audiobook novels on the podcast for free. Now, only a few hundred people listen, but if one of those people is influential in any way, and they tell people about it, or they mention it on a book podcast or something like that, that could get you some exposure that you may not expect, which is great. Um, so there was a guy on the radio in Los Angeles I used to listen to, Phil Hendry, and he did a show where he would do fake guests. He would he would do the voices for the fake guests. So he had, I think, and he would do it live sometimes at the Aspen Comedy Festival, and he would have like one mic here, then he'd have another mic over here with a filter on it, so it sounded like it was coming over the phone. And he would do these episodes of the show with these guests, and he would tell people, "This is fake. I'm making this up. I'm a comedian. I'm doing this." But he would still always, without fail, get people to call in thinking it was real. And he explained that there's always people who have never heard the show, who are just stumbling upon, who just come upon it, and they hear what he's saying, and they get so outraged, and they have to call and give their opinion on it, and it's hilarious. But you would most of the audience is in on the joke, and it's still he still gets people to call in, which is fascinating. So, and this is one of the, things I talked about with Jody on the first time I did his podcast, is giving away your books for free is something that there's I think, a big battle on. People are of 2 minds of this. No, they're in one camp or the other, right? They feel like your your work has value. Don't give it away. If people get it for free, they're not going to be as invested in enjoying it. But I think you can do both. I think you can have a reasonably priced product on Amazon and at the live shows that I do, and eventually I'm going to stand up my website once I get find time to do that, and also serialize them on my podcast and give them away for free. And I'm going to be hitting different audience segments. There will be probably thousands of people who will read books who don't like to listen to podcasts. I talk to them every time at a show. I ask them, "Hey, do you like audiobooks?" About half the people saying, No, no, don't like it. I can't focus. It's not my thing. I prefer having the feeling the book in my hand and all that kind of stuff." So there's always going to be a segment of your audience that wants that paper book in their hand. They want to feel it. They want to have it and turn the pages. And I'm like that too. I like owning the book. and making it my own. Um, but some people don't like to do that. So some people prefer listening to the audiobook. Some people are audiobooks only. Then they've got no clutter at all. I mean, it's even less space than a Kindle, right? Because you can listen to it on your phone. Your phone is smaller than a Kindle. So making your book available on all those formats. So whenever you buy a book from me in person, you get all three formats. You get the paperback, the ebook, and the audiobook. Um, because I really believe that you're buying my story. You're not buying an edition. You're buying my story. You can enjoy it whichever way you prefer to enjoy it. But when you're buying from me in person, you wanna get that signed book. I would. I mean, that's the whole point of meeting an author is, like, having getting their book signed and saying, "Wow, okay, when this guy is Jody Sperling famous, he this is gonna be worth something. I can tell people I met this guy, and I got my book signed by him before this was made into a major motion picture and blockbuster TV series and all this other stuff." That's what Arthur keeps promising me. He's, like, saying, "Dead Kids Club is going to be a mini series on Netflix." And I say, "Okay." He said, "But you have to keep writing 4,000 words a day." And I'm like, I've got a job, Arthur, unless you're gonna pay me for the 4,000 words." And he says, "No, I no pay you." And, he doesn't have that accent. I don't know why he did that. Arthur does not have a European accent. He's American. He just says, "I don't pay you. You write, I collect the money, and I take my 25%." So, we'll see how that goes. But, yeah, he's, very demanding on that. To be honest, I did not write the 4,000 words today, Arthur. Um, I wrote 0 words, 0 new words today. Um, and the reason for that is I was at work all day, and then I came home and I, finished doing the narration, errors that we discovered last night for the time cop paradox, and then I went through and I reproduced it. So I already had some of the sound effects. But I added a whole bunch more. So the first one did not have any footsteps in it when people were entering and leaving rooms. I find that that is just one of the dimensions you can add to a story, especially like the ones I do on the podcast that just creates that sort of air of transition, that sort of like you hear the footsteps, you go, "Oh, somebody's coming in the room. There's a new character here." And it's subconscious and most of the time, but you hear it and you're like, "Oh, okay." You expect that to be there. And it really sort of, I think, draws you in. The whole idea of creating an audioscape, um, to sort of wrap around the story. The other thing I did is I added some music to it, some background music. I found some fun background music. Um, Let me play it for you. Let me play that for you real quick, see if I can find it. I know exactly where it is. Do 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 do. Come over here to my sound effects folder, to my music background. Where is it? Music background. And here we go. Listen to this. And so imagine you take the level down like this, and you're narrating the first part of the story. Hey, I love this music. It's just kind of like groovy, and it's not too overbearing. And it has like little changes in it that sort of just happen to coincide with the story too. Here's a key change, and it's just so I love discovering these little bits of music that I can use and throw in there on top of the narration, especially a lot of my stories. I end up like giving some background. The narrator is like telling, "Hey, this is what's going on. This is what's happening here. Where's my pizza?" Is another one where I do that, and I just found some groovy music to put behind it, and it sort of like fills the time. Whenever I'm doing dialogue, I very rarely put music over the dialogue. Sometimes I'll have some ambiance to sort of set the scene if they're in a restaurant or outside or something like that, driving in a car. The only story I've done so far that has like almost wall to wall music is Total Loss, which was a story my brother wrote, science fiction stories published in Analog. And it just, it was one of those stories. It was just kind of like a really lighthearted, humorous story. And the science fiction angle is just that it's just around the corner. It's one of those things where it's like, what if your insurance company did this? And so, but it just had kind of like a sense to it that like whenever the certain character was in a room there, he had a theme song that was playing in the background. When he wasn't there, there was another song that was playing. So that one has a lot of music behind it. And this is a technique that another podcast, The Other Stories, uses quite a bit. They have wall to wall music behind their stories. And it's very moody music. Uh, Sometimes I think it doesn't quite work. But on the whole, I think they've been doing it long enough that they've got a good handle on that. So it really depends on your thing. But I find that if I'm starting on a story and I'm just filling in background, like the Time Cop Paradox is set in a think tank that is actually a television pilot that Arnold Reddick and I wrote years ago. And I just feel like necessary to give that background. Why are these people here? Who are they? Because I want to set them up and use them for other stories too. So that is the case on that, and so I did that and, added the music to it, added the footsteps, added the other sound effects back, and this was there are long stretches in this where there aren't any sound effects, it's a lot of dialogue, and I don't feel the need to put a lot of sound effects over the dialogue. When people are talking, the dialogue, the voices become the sound effects, so that's just my personal philosophy. It may evolve over the years, it may evolve in the future, I don't know, but that's what's working for me right now. That and taking my time when I'm speaking, not trying to rush through the story. Um, and that again, it just comes with experience listening to a lot of audiobooks. Unfortunately, uh, unfortunately, there's an audiobook narrator named Scott Brick. You may know him. He's highly in demand, and he coincidentally records the stories, records a lot of books that I want to listen to. Most recently, he has been doing the Foundation books because of the Apple TV tie-in, and so I wanted to listen to the Foundation books, and I saw that it was Scott Brick, and I'm like, "Oh, jeez. Oh, jeez." I just he just doesn't do it for me. I can understand why people like him. He doesn't overly perform them, but on the other hand, he doesn't overly perform them. Now, there's another narrator named John Lee who does Peter F. Hamilton's books, who is amazing. He is he's got this very proper English voice, and he can do accents and old and young and male and female and alien, and he just he is fantastic. His range is just ginormous, and I'm just complete awe of him. And I have no complaints about his audio performances. They are flawless. John Lee, if you look it up, one of my favorite books, Pandora's Star, followed by Judas Unchained. They're both like 1,000-page books. I discovered Peter F. Hamilton because when I had my Audible membership, and you pay like a flat fee for each book instead of what the normal pricing. Normal pricing is based on the length of the book. But if you get the subscription, if you buy the Audible credits, 1 credit per book. And the credit, if you buy the whole year's worth, is like $8 or $9, something like that. And so I would look for the books that were like really, really long in audio. And his were like 20 to 30 hours. I'd say I'm paying $9 for 20, 30 hours instead of 8 or 9, which is normal length for a book. And so Why not? I listened to so I saw his books were the longest, and, I listened to them, and they were fantastic. It just giant sweeping space operas that just, so many characters and stories going on, and John Lee juggles all of it masterfully, and, he is, I think, the GOAT in terms of book narration. John Lee, if you're out there, I'd love to meet you someday. Come on the stream. Wouldn't that be awesome if John Lee actually heard that I was talking about him and said, "Yeah, I'll come on your stream." He'll come do his little come do his British accent and talk to me, and I try to imitate him, and it'd be fun. All right, so I did that. I got that book that is scheduled on the Podomatic to appear tomorrow morning. So I'm going to have that second episode of the week. Normally, I try to do a story and a book segment, but I'm out of book segments right now. So I'm going to be doing these remasterings um, every week to get the 2 episodes in. And the reason I want to get those 2 episodes in is really because of the way podcast analytics, podcast statistics work. It's the number of downloads that you have, not the number of episodes. It's the number of downloads that you have. So the more episodes you have, the more downloads you can have, right? So if you've got 1,000 subscribers and you put out 5 episodes a week, that's 5,000 downloads you can count on a week. If you've got 1,000 subscribers, you put out 1 episode a week, that's only 1,000 downloads. It's just simple math. So my goal is to have those 2 episodes a week, one being a new story and one being a book segment. So if I can get to work on The 10th Ride and Farsight, I will have enough book segments for the next half a year, um, because each one of those will be broken up into about 16 episodes. So that's 32 weeks. So yeah, that's more than half a year. So, but they're not going to be ready for at least a month or so. So I'll be doing the remasterings for the rest of this month and probably all of October. And then I'll kick off November with the 10th Ride, and that'll should take me through the next year, and then I'll do Farsight, and then hopefully by then I will have also Spy You when that's all done. So, and I do the audiobook for the podcast anthology, but it'd be silly to serialize that because it's just the stories from the podcast. So I can't really do that one. But I did find out, and I think I mentioned this before too, that the reason I wasn't seeing my anthology in my ACX claimed books is that it's not published yet as an ebook. And that is what ACX goes off of, ebooks, not paperbacks, ebooks. So if you're going to do ACX, make sure you get that ebook up there so you can sort of cross-reference them. So that is the point of what I'm going to be working on tonight. I I am going to be finishing doing the formatting for the paperback version of my book, and then also, well, if I don't get to it tonight, I'll do it tomorrow. I'll show you how I do the Kindle using the Kindle Creator software too. But let me share this with you guys real quick here. So I'm like got a high resolution thing going on here, so you're not gonna be able to see a lot of detail, but that's okay because we're just kind of looking at the overall thing. So over on the left side, you've got my original paperback layout, which is a 6x9. So the 6x9, here's an example of that. Right, this is the 6x9 book, and this is what my paperback so far been published in. Standard format. A lot of people put their books out in 6x9. It's a nice meaty thing. It's premium. It feels like, you know, in between a paperback and a hardback. However, I want to publish hardbacks, and I'm probably going to do that through Ingram unless I find something better. I think it's a good stopgap. Get the hardbacks out there, make them available to libraries, especially. And so I'm going to be converting all my 6x9 paperbacks into 6 by 9 hardcovers with a dust jacket. I want to do a dust jacket on my books because I think dust jackets really make a book look professional. So that is what I'm going to be doing with all my 6 by 9s, right? So 6 by 9 is this size, and I'm translating them into the 5 by 8. So you can see the difference there, right? So this is the 5 by 8 here. This is the 6 by 9. 5 by 8 is just a little bit smaller, right? It fits in the hand a little bit easier, a little bit easier to manage. And when you're selling a hardback for $25 and you're selling this for 20 to 15 to $20, then it kind of makes a little bit more sense, right? So my I'm working on this. So I did the Charlatane's Conundrum as a 6 by 9 paperback because I just want to get it out there. I wanted to have it ready for the Printers Row Lit Fest. So I did a 6 by 9 paperback and printed up a bunch of copies. So I've got some inventory. And I've got that, but I need to do this in the 5 by 8. So first step is taking this 6 by 9, which is, you can see the layout here. These are the pages here. And this is the page layout is 6 by 9. If I come here to layout and I go to size, you'll see that I have selected here. It doesn't say it, does it? Where is that? There we go. Wallpaper sizes. There we go. 6 by 9. Can I zoom in on this? Let me see if I got this here. What is my zoom? Control 5. Why is that not working? Do I not have that here? I don't have zoom in on this computer, do I? Control 8. Hmm. Zoom it. Nope, I don't have zoom in. I can't. Okay, I'm going to try it this way. Hang on a sec. Windows plus. There we go. Now you can see it. Yeah, there we go. Okay. So there you can see 6 by 9 custom size, right? Uh-oh, I lost my control of my screen size. Oh no, hang on a second, guys. There we go. Okay. Pressing the wrong key. Okay. All right. So that's 6 by 9. And then when I'm producing the paperback book, you do it with the gutter margins and all that kind of stuff. And that helps to make that work there, right? And so this is essentially what the page looks like. And you send this file to KDP, Kindle Desktop Publishing, and they turn this into a book for you. But it has to be the same size as the book that you're going to print. So that's the 6 by 9 edition. Over here, what I did is I changed the page size to 5 1/4 by 8. So let me show you that real quick. Size, more paper sizes. So it's actually 5 1/4 by 8. So that's pretty close to the same ratio as 6 by 9. If I just did 5 by 8, it would be a little bit skinnier than the 6 by 9. And I did that. I When did I do that? Oh, these ones. Here we go. So I did that with my brother's book. So you can see one of these is 5 1/4 by 8, and one of them is 5 by 8. And you can see that one is skinnier than the other. I mean, it's really obvious, even though it's only a 1/4 inch difference. You can tell that it's skinnier, and so it's nice to be able to say to have that proportion. And just to my eye, it just looks better to have it with the 5 1/4 instead of the 5 by 8. So Jody J. Sperling does 5 by 8. I do 5 1/4 by 8. It is one of the sizes that's available in KDP, so it is available for expanded distribution if you prefer to. And again, it's going to be the same proportion, so your cover art will look very similar on that as well. But what's happening here, let me cancel this, is now I've got this here, and so I need to change the font size on this. So if I look here at the font size for like this material here on the cover here, let me come back to the home tab. You may not be able to see this, so I'll tell you what this is. So this is font size of 11 points, Palatino linotype. So Palatino is the font I like for my printed books. Um, it's just the one I said this is what my font is going to be, Palatino linotype. And so I use 11-point font here. On the 5 by 8, the font size is, oh, it's also 11 for this part here. But you can see that the margins are different, right? So this word here got bumped down. I may actually change this down to 10.5. All right. This artwork here that is an ad for the podcast, that scales nicely since the proportions are very, very close. And you can see the space here for the gutter margin. That's the part of the book that is kind of like in the glue binding that you really can't get to. So the outside margins become more important, and you have that little extra space in the gutter for that. And down here, the also by, let's see, that it comes out the same. Did I change the font size on this? Let me see real quick. So font size on that is 14. The font size on this is again 14. Okay, so I didn't have to change that one. And then here's the introduction. Can't sleep. Font size on this is 12. And over here, it is 12 again. Okay. Wonder if I changed the font size anywhere. I thought I had. Table of contents. Oh, interesting. Why did I call this one contents? And why is there a different font? I gotta fix that. Yeah, this got sent to Calibri. Let's do Palatino. And what was the font size here? 10. So that's still 10. I'm gonna call this table of contents. Make that Palatino as well. There we go. We can make it a little bit smaller. Smaller here. What is that? Why is that going to the next page? I don't want that to go to the next page. I guess it doesn't matter. That can go to the next page. All right, you can see already that, the layout of this is different here, right? So this is the table of contents. It gets generated automatically by Word. And here I'm trying to line it up the same way, and you can see it's slightly different there. All right, so here's where we come into the actual formatting of the story. So now this here, I got font size of 11. And here I've got a font size of 9.5. So I brought it down that amount, right? So if you think about it, when I'm going from a 9-inch book to an 8-inch book, what reduction in size is that? That's a full inch. That's more than 10% reduction in size, right? If it was just 10%, it would be 0.9 inches. And so it's a little bit more than that. So if I were to go from 11 point to 10 point, that would be much less than a 10%. So I went down another half a point, and I think it looks okay. I'm not going to know really until I print it out and look at it and hold it in my hand. But at this point here, I think I'm going to go with the 9.5 because it sort of gives me the same general proportions here. This is actually one line longer than this one over here. You can see the difference. I've also changed the proportions on the margins too. So up here, I've got like half an inch. Here, I've got point 0.4 of an inch. And you'll see here too that this actually when I export this from Scrivener, it actually does a lot of this work for me. But each story has then on the odd pages, the first odd page, there's no header. On the even pages, it's my name, and then on the other subsequent odd pages, it's the name of the story. So that works out really well for me. I like the way that goes, and then I do page numbers centered on the bottom. Now for my mini books, actually, I did something different. For the mini books, I did the page number up at the top. I don't know if you can see it down here in this little screen down here. You can see the page numbers are in the upper corners. And I did that just because I looked at other small books and that's what they did. And so I decided to go with that. So this is always how I'm going to do this book. Um, I'm still debating, I'm thinking that my margins can be a little bit smaller since I am losing a line there. What I'll do is, so I'm gonna go through several iterations of this. What I'll do is I will take this book, format it in the 5 by 8, 5 1/4 by 8, and then I will upload it to KDP, get a proof copy made, and then see how it looks. And I'll make adjustments from there. Now that's a slow process because they have to print the book and send it to you. It takes almost about a week to get that. So that could take several exchanges. So it could take 3, 4 weeks to make sure you got everything right. Not only the interior of the book, but the exterior. Because the thing I noticed about this one here, especially, is if you look at the back cover, the barcode there, you see how it's covering up the text on this copy for some reason? Not supposed to, but it does. Okay, I got to fix that. All right. So here we are. So I'm doing this with this, and then if I need to change this, I will go back and change this. But for right now, I'm going to stick with this. So this is the version I'm going to go with here. I want to make sure that all of my text is 9.5 points, and away we go. So now this thing bugs me too. I try not to have less than 3 lines of page of story on a page. I think I'm going to actually change these margins. Let's see what I got here. So up here at the top, header from the top is 0.4, footer from the bottom is 0.4, right? If I do that, what do I get from that? Oh, I don't have that on this sections. Okay, so like this number should not be here on the front material. Get rid of that. Okay. So this isn't count. This is the front material here. Okay, here we go. All right, so this one here. Oh, see, footer from the bottom. I knew it. I knew it was different. It's 0.3. Let me bring that up back to 0.4. Okay. Been to the show many times. Been to the show many times. Okay. So that's it. So that's why it was looking off to me, because this one was actually zero point 0.3 instead of zero point 0.4 inches. A tenth of an inch. I mean, you may not think it's a lot, but it makes a big difference here. So I'm going to just make sure that all my margins have the same thing. Now here, somehow I have lost the numbering here. So I've got this linked to previous. I think what happened is it should not be linked to previous. Let me insert the page number here. Page number. I can put it at the bottom of the page. Plain simple number. There we go. There it is. There's the page number. I'm going to bump that back up and then put a little space before the page number to bump that down. Okay. Now I want to check the font on this. So the font on this, on the page numbers, is Calibri there. Is that right? Yeah, for some reason I'm using Calibri for the page number. Oh no, Palatino Linotype 9. Calibri body 10. So I want to change that to Palatino 9. So it's slightly smaller than my text. Okay. The Palatino 9 is basically the same as the Calibri 10. Or yeah, Palatino 9. Okay. And that one's okay, that's Palatino Linotype 9. Okay, up at the top here, same thing, Palatino 9, everything looks good. All right, so now I've got that set. I can see my margins. I'm going to check the gutter here real quick here too. So on the layout in my margins, I will see I've got custom margins here. You'll see, and let me show that to you real quick here. Let me zoom in. I can do this without destroying everything. So there you go. You can see that the top and bottom and outside margins are all zero point 0.4 inches. Normally they're 0.5 on the 6x9. And then the inside, so this is the basically the gutter margin. For mirror margins here, right? I got mirror margins set up so that the odd pages will have a larger left margin and the even pages will have a larger right margin. And that inside margin is going to be 0.6 instead of zero point 0.4. So that's good. So we'll see how that actually turns out though in the actual printing process. I may need to make slight adjustments to that later on, but we'll see how that goes. But right now, it looks good. It looks like I want it to look, and look down here. So this last page now is no longer 2 pages, which is good. I'm not going to worry about that. Okay. Let me come back here. And so now my titles here are going to be Wire 1, 36 points. Make sure I get the same title here. So these generally, yeah, I don't need to change those too much, but these graphics here, if I look at the size of this, see more here. I think I'm making them, yeah, 2 inches. So 2 by 2. So in the 6x9 version, they're 2.25 inches. So again, about 10% bigger, right? A little bit more than 10%. So that works out nicely. Okay. So I want to make sure that each chapter of this book, two things happen, especially for an anthology like this. One, that each story starts on an odd page, that it's going to be on the right-hand side of the book. That may mean that there may be something on the left-hand side or it may be a blank page, but always starts on the right-hand side. Two, that there is no top heading on there. There's no heading on the top of the page since I've got the title of the book. The heading would be the title. I've got the title right here. I don't need to do that twice. It looks cleaner that way. All right, so I'm gonna come down here. Here's the Austin Intelligence. Let me just double check the margins on this and the fonts. Okay, so I'm here to home, Palatino Linotype 9, and then the headers are going to be, oops, let me come back to the header and footer. And just check the margins on that real quick. So here's header and footer. Yep, see the footer bottom, I need to bump up to 0.4. All right, so I need to go back and check all these, right? So this one, 0.4, 0.4, 0.4. And so after the first page, the odd and even will be shared, but it's going to restart each time. And Word does this with what they call sections. And so I just need to make sure that my sections are correct here. So on this page, it's 4 and 4, 0.4 and 0.4, I should say. Here, it's 0.4 and 0.4, 0.4 and 0.4. Okay, so everything looks good there. So everything looks good here. The headers are correct. I don't have any stray numbering. Come here all the way to Austin Intelligence, ends with a nice bit of page on the text on an even page. And then my next story starts on an odd page. Okay, let's just double check the font size here. So this should be 36. This should be 9.5. And this should be 2 by 2. So I'm going to check this for each of the stories. And there's 26 stories I need to check. But this is where you need to get meticulous. This is where you need to make sure that everything looks exactly the way you want it to. 2 inches. Okay, good. And the other thing too, nice thing you can do here on this is I always do my text wrapping as behind text. And then my position, I'll set alignments here. So it's going to be centered on the column. So that's going to center it along the text instead of the whole page so that it'll respect those inside and outside margins. And then the top, I'm going to go to the top margin there. So it's going to be centered on the top margin, which is at the top of the text here, so that it'll be consistent across all of the different elements that I do there. Okay, let me come back in down here and check my margins. So I can see here already that this one is a 0.3 as opposed to a 0.4. So I want to bump that up. 0.4. I don't know why I thought that was a good idea to do 0.3. It was just that one. Okay. There we go. And I come here, finishes on an odd page. All right. So here is a situation where I'm finishing on an odd page. I do not want to do that. So I need to add a page in between here. Now, this is where it gets tricky because of the way Word works. If I just do Control Enter for a new page break, sometimes it'll work. This time it worked. All right, this is what I want to see. It's a blank page, but it's still got my name and the page number on it. That is good. So what'll happen is then this story will start on a new page on the right-hand side, and there will be nothing opposite it. And the reason for that, again, is that in a short story anthology, I just feel the design decision I've made for this book is that all the stories will start on an odd page. So I may have these blank pages from time to time, but that's okay. I'm fine with that. And I did the same thing for the mini books, right? All the stories start on an odd page. So I may have a blank page in there. Let's see if this one has one. Nope. What here? Nope, that one's not blank either. What about the ending one here? No, they all well no, this one does. So this one ends on an odd page. Yeah, they all end on odd pages because that's okay. Anyway, I'm looking at something that you can't see. Great live stream, Rich. All right, so I'm going to come here now and take a look at this one and just make sure the font sizes are correct. This one should be, so here we go. So this one's Palatino 11. So I haven't changed the size on this story yet. So I'm going to, and this is a struggle I have with this, is that I don't want to um, do like a global search because I'll change font sizes that I don't mean to set. So I'm just going to like zoom out till I can see the whole story. I will select all the text for that, and I'll make sure it's Palatino at 9.5. And there we go. So it takes me to Palatino at 9.5. It ends on an even page. My title is at 36 point. Let's check this, make sure this is 2 by 2. 2 by 2, good. And just checking the font size on the footers and headers too, real quick. So this should be 9 points on the footers and headers. So that's 9. That's 9. Okay, that's good. All right, so everything else there turned out really well. Zoom in a little bit more here. Too much. There we go. All right, so there we go. So now the story ends on an even page, right? That is an even page, and then starts again. The next one starts on an odd page. So I'm good to go. All right. Now I could keep on doing this all night for you guys. Feels boring, but this is what I'm going to do. I'll probably stay up a little bit longer and do some more stories. But my goal is to get this done. And so tomorrow I will show you then how I take this Word document and put it into an ebook format for Kindle, and then also how I can then export it so that I can distribute it through BookFunnel as well. And also upload it to Ingram. So I do the non-exclusive distribution on, Kindle because I do want to sell it through all the other channels, Ingram and my own bookstore, and if you're exclusive to Amazon, they pay you a slightly higher royalty, but man, it's a tiny fraction of the book price, right? It's strange because when you buy the author copies of a book like this size here, it's gonna be between 5 and $6, right? If you sell it on Amazon for 15 to $20, you will make between 2 and $4. Yeah, around $4, I think. So it's like more than half of the profit from the book. This is after the printing costs goes to Amazon. So because they tell you it's like a 40% royalty, but it's 40% after costs and other things that they factor in. So it's really not 40% of the cover price. If it was 40% of the cover price, that'd be pretty decent because I remember reading that the old publishing, the old conventional publishing days, the author would get like 15% of the cover price. And the books didn't cost that much. You had dime novels for crying out loud. We're selling novels for 10 cents. So an author would make a penny a book, um, penny and a half. So if you sold 1,000 books, you would make 10, $15 as an author. Wow. Crazy. But then again, back then, I mean, there were fewer books printed and more people bought those books. It's kind of like analogous to TV shows, right? Back in the day, TV shows when they were only four major networks, before that three major networks, uh, you had tens of millions of people watching the shows. Now it's you're lucky if you get a million people watching a show. So much smaller audience on that. So the same thing for books. There's a lot more books. They have smaller audiences. Unless you're someone like King or Patterson who just breaks through and has that huge audience, which according to Arthur Weidenbaum is in my future, then it's going to be a little bit different and a little harder to do that. Okay, so my goal over the next day is to get this done, get this 5 1/4 by 8 version print set up, and at least get the ebook up. I do this all through Nifty Press, and Arnold Rudnick controls that. Arthur, well, I guess Arthur can deal with him now. Um, Arnold manages that, so um, I will send him the ebook tomorrow to put up there and get it out there so I can do the audiobook. And then hopefully I will get the 5 1/4 by 8 version of the paperback done. And then when I run low on copies here, where I'm probably not going to order any until I get low, and hopefully I'll have the new cover art by then too. Um, I expect by the time I'm ready to order that, I will also have the next volume of short stories, which is The Time Traveler's Dilemma, and still other bedtime stories for insomniacs, um, ready and available for publication at that point. So I will have two anthologies and let's see, two anthologies and five novels. Yeah, five novels. By the end, by the beginning of next year. By the end of the year, I will have 10th Ride and I should be able to get a Time Traveler's Dilemma out. So that's two more books. So that's four novels and two short story collections. I'll have Farsight done beginning of next year, also beginning of next year, and possibly the first quarter. Possibly the first quarter. If I can get Spy You written in January, I can get it out by the end of March. That is doable. That is certainly doable. Um, I need to get started on the art for that though right away, and I need to find someone who can commit to a 4 to 7 book series for that too. Um, because like Harry Potter was what, 7 books? So I want to kind of follow that arc. All right. All right, so that's what I'll be working on. I'll get that formatting done, and I'll what I usually do instead of, sending it to Arnold to get the test printing, I do the test printing through my own KDP, and maybe I'll show that to you tonight, or tomorrow night. I'll show you how I set it up on KDP, and then, request proof copy, see how it looks, and then it's kind of interesting how you request a proof, and then after a while, it shows up in your Amazon shopping cart somehow. It's kinda interesting. Alright. Thanks for hanging out with me, guys. Again, I keep forgetting to say, subscribe, like, do all that kind of stuff for the stream, whatever platform you're watching on, YouTube or Rumble or X. And also, if you are interested in joining me in the writer's room, let me know. Reach out to me on X. I am open to this. I hopefully I saw someone on X was looking for writers to interview. She wants to do an interview series. I said, "Hey, I'll do that. Um, you want to come on my live stream and talk about it?" So maybe we'll get her to come do that as well. I also am waiting for York Campbell to join me on the live stream. He indicated he might be willing to do that, so I'd love to talk to him. He does a fiction podcast as well. Uh, s- I don't want to get it wrong. Stories from Earth or Stories of Earth. I forgot. Sorry, York. I don't have it in front of me. Anyway, anyway, um, if you are interested in joining me, you don't have to be Jody Sperling famous. You just have to be a writer who is wants to talk about something, wants to talk about their own work, wants to talk about my work, wants to talk about my podcast, wants to talk about podcasting in general, wants to talk about publishing in general, wants to talk about any aspect of writing. Come on, let's talk about it. I saw some more people like getting ready to gearing up for NaNoWriMo and uh, who is that? Accent, and it's no, it's Nday XK or NKX Day or XXXK Nday. One of those combinations. That's a Twitter handle that is for a website where they're trying to do a similar thing that NaNoWriMo did. And whenever someone posts that they're getting ready to do NaNoWriMo, they jump in there and say, "Hey, nobody's doing this anymore because of all these scandals." And so I'd like to get that person on here as well. All right. Let's see here. That's it. I think I've gone well way over here. God, 7 minutes over, 8 minutes. I will talk to you guys tomorrow, and hopefully, Arthur will not be beating me up too badly for not getting my 4K in. But definitely need to also, if I get through this, okay, do the final rewrite for Leap, so I can record that for next week for the podcast. Because I'm finally on schedule, and I'd love to get ahead of schedule again. At times, I have been a schedule where I've been like 2 weeks ahead on my stories. I've got them published, ready to go. I don't need to worry about getting things done at the last minute. So I'd love to be in that position where I can sort of do 2 stories a week for a couple of weeks so that I can get myself from breathing room to finish 10th ride and have that done. But I do have so I've got next week I've got Leap, and then the week after that I've got the In the Light of the Moon. That's the werewolf story that we broke here on the podcast. So those 2 coming up to finish out the month. So that should be good. And that should give me enough time then to finish 10th ride and get it out to beta readers and hopefully get that published before November. All right. That's the plan. Again, I don't know who's watching this. I do see downloads on Rumble and a couple on YouTube and stuff like that. If you're watching, please, hey, reach out to me. Leave a comment. Give me a like. Let me know you're out there. Um, and stop by and say hi. I really I, I've made some really good friends on Twitter and X. And so I'm hoping to make more. And again, this format is a little self-indulgent. It's mostly about me, but I don't necessarily want it to just be about me. I want to talk to you guys too. All right. Like and subscribe. See you later.